Hey everyone, welcome back to Brick System Brothers. My name's Nathan Masters. If you're not familiar with LEGO idea books, these date all the way back to the beginning of the LEGO system itself. And actually, I'm pretty sure Brickstar has found an idea book for the precursor to the bricks as we know them today. But for today's video, I'm not going to dive into that history. I think there's definitely another topic here looking at the idea books of the 50s and 60s. This particular book is known as 239, which I think is on the last page right here in this circle, so 239, and it dates back to 1966. As a side note, Brickset has a great database of other ideas books if you're interested in looking through these, and their first one with high quality scans goes back to 1960. This particular book is also cataloged on Rebrickable, but probably not the best quality scan available here. And the one that I'll be paging through, I found an uploaded PDF version as well. So all those links will be available. And as Brickstar was paging through this one on his channel, there were a couple builds that caught my eye. Definitely a few that I want to come back to. But for today's video, there is a harbor scene right here. And this is the first page in the book, so page 25 and 26 have this harbor set up. And right in the middle of the page, it's actually cut in half here because of the upload, there's this blue and yellow little cargo ship. So a couple pages down from there, we get another look at it. And I'm actually going to jump over to the Brickstar video because I think his review does a little better job at capturing what it looks like in the book. So right there, cut right down the middle of the page is this blue and yellow, this harbor freighter. We do also have a very simplified version of the building inspiration. I wouldn't even call these instructions because you're really not seeing the full story, but there's a little bit of information there, and that was another factor in my decision to attempt a construction of this boat. So this is what I came up with. This is in Bricklink Studio, and the reason I built this in Studio is because from here you are able to export an instruction PDF, and that was one of the end goals I had with this, was to be able to host some community instructions on Rebrickable for this particular boat. I'm not actually sure if anyone else has done this model before, so these might be the first instructions for this particular boat. On the other hand, for me, it wasn't necessarily a huge difficulty to piece it together based on the pictures, so I'm pretty sure other people would be able to do that as well. But if you want to jump start on it and you just need the bill of materials and some piece-by-piece, step-by-step instructions, hopefully this will get you going in the right direction. Yeah, that's all there is to it. I think that video is condensed down from about an hour, so a decent amount of time to kind of cross-reference the materials that are available. Now, a couple interesting things I will note about a few of the parts on this, if this is something you're going to attempt to build. The model that I've created and the reference models use this old version of the 1x1 round brick. And this was around for a couple years until LEGO introduced the version with the hole in the stud and the notch at the base that is in wide circulation today. So if you want to go completely original and round up this piece for the boat, you are going to need quite a few of them. It's the second most popular piece. There's 32 in this model. And those aren't necessarily super easy to find depending on where you shop around. So those can get pricey. I have my price calculator set to use the last 6 months used average price. It's saying they're going for about 17 cents right now, so that's about $5 worth of just that part. The other hiccup you might run into with this build is the use of the old window system. So this window system was pretty much ubiquitous until LEGO introduced the minifigure and started creating larger window sizes. But up until that point, this was kind of the de facto standard for creating windows and doors in different structures, and it worked well enough because of the difference in the scale approach. So obviously this ship is not scaled to minifigure form, it's much smaller, and so these things like a 1x1x2 window element actually are the perfect size for a door at this scale. So they were widely used for these models, and these idea books, of course, used a ton of them, but they're getting pretty hard to find today because they are discontinued. So in this particular model, sorted by quantity again, it's calling for 25 of these 1x1 windows. Then we're going to go down, we're going to see the 1x2 with 4 of those used, and then the 1x1 2 bricks tall with 3 of those used. And all 3 of these are pretty much going for $1 a piece right now. So that's not too bad for those other 2 sizes, but for this 1x1 size, if you're going to try to find 25 of those at $1 a piece, that's going to add up pretty quickly. So unless you already have a decent stock of these floating around to pull from, and you don't necessarily care about going for 100% accuracy to the original version of the model, there are a couple workarounds that are worth pointing out. This 1x1 stud not on top brick, a very similar profile from far away. It has a very similar look to it. The one thing I will warn you about if you're using this piece, it can become an issue with the stress of the elements because this stud here on the side does stick out just a little bit farther than the base of the brick. So you can't necessarily use these next to something else, or there's going to be that little bit of interference with this stud on the side here. But in a couple cases, you should be able to use this piece as a substitute, and you could even get to a point where you're doing a mix and match situation if you're able to find a couple of these original windows, and then the rest of them you can substitute this piece in and not necessarily have to find 25 of those. That being said, I really like the coherence and the realism that these windows give, and it's a shame that they are discontinued because it's a pretty nice window system that LEGO hasn't necessarily found great replacements and great workarounds for replicating, especially these smaller sizes. I think once you get into the 1x2x2 size, we see a lot of new window sizes today that they didn't have back then. And of course, that goes back to the minifigure scale approach and the minifigure scale problem. So yeah, look through the LEGO windows that are out there sometime. That's another interesting rabbit trail to go down. But those are just some cliff notes on building this boat, if that is something you're interested in doing. And again, the instructions for this are now hosted on my Rubricable mock page. So of course, my own creation, in this case, not necessarily my original creation, but I've not been able to find the step-by-step instructions for this boat out there anywhere else. probably because this is from a 1966 idea book that didn't see a lot of exposure, not necessarily widely known in today's LEGO circles. I still think it's a great example of what can be done with a limited color palette, a limited brick palette. You know, there's only 51 unique lots here, so not necessarily a ton of different pieces, and really very simplified colors and parts being used to create a model that looks pretty decent. And it would be tough to improve upon this with the modern library of parts that we do have. Like I mentioned, ideas books is another topic I want to go into on this channel at some point. I think there's just a wealth of inspiration out there, and a wealth of LEGO history as well that is not often explored when you look at the variety we have today with parts and colors. I think it's great to have so many choices and have that variety for tackling different subjects, but there's a certain charm to these classic pieces and classic colors. Definitely resonates with a lot of builders and harkens back to a simpler time of LEGO. Thanks for watching today, guys. We'll see you next time on Brick System Brothers.